Smaller. No. Oh, that's annoying. But I put in the live thing in the menu bar thing. It's now changed me layout, and I can't. Okay. Okay.
Not seeing it.
No.
It's crap, hasn't it? This YouTube.
Yeah.
Don't know what's going on.
Someone says I'm frozen. Yes, I'm looking frozen here.
Oh yeah.
But there's sound.
Yeah, I can hear you, but
Okay,
Yeah.
you're definitely frozen.
Turn video off and turn camera on.
You did that with last week, didn't you? I had to blow you back in. Yeah, I can definitely hear you.
Am I back
There you go.
running?
Yeah.
Yeah. Back in full multicolour.
Yeah. And various people on Discord can hear you, so that's looking good.
Someone says it's on YouTube, so it must be fine.
Okay. It's odd that we just can't see it at all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there we are. There we are.
Oh, have you got it?
Yeah, I can see
No.
this now.
I've got not a jot. Which is odd, seeing as it's me that fired it up.
Yeah. Well.
I can see my chat window, which of course has got nothing in it.
I'm very moving, says Mr. Danton, Junior, Senior. I mean,
Danton Jr., who's that?
I don't know. I get lost. Well, that's his youth, isn't it? I mean, Editor Danton's youth has gone to uni or something, hasn't they? They're all growing up. I don't know
Yeah.
how this was allowed. Yes. Aircon. Let me point that out. I was pointing out to the chaps. It's a very balmy 21 in here now. Oh, recording has stopped. It just says.
Yeah, it does. Something went wrong, and
Was
they're
that
not being
you or was
recorded
that me?
anymore. No, that's you apparently. Everyone else is still being recorded.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay, I'm going to pick that up and come back in on a different browser.
Okay.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah. Where we have the. You think after 802 episodes that the luck would go our way occasionally, because that's all it can be. You know, we rarely change things week to week, and it still breaks.
We're pressing all the right
Is
buttons.
that better?
Yes, you're back.
Okay.
What browser were you in, John?
I was in Safari.
Oh, no, don't. It wants Chrome.
I'm now in Microsoft Edgeorama.
Yeah, that's fine. Any Chrome-based browser.
Yeah.
It's something to do with the way it caches.
Pile of shite.
They do have their own sort of app, Riverside, but I've never been brave enough to try it.
No, it's not great. Or at least
Is it
wasn't last time I tried it. They have done about 8 versions of it since. But
I'll stick with Chrome. That's the only thing I use Chrome for.
Well, hopefully this will work. Are we about to start? Oh, nearly.
We're getting there.
a minute or so.
Absolutely.
Something's crackling.
That's not me.
No, I dropped a pen.
No, I'm hearing some noise. That.
It's gone now.
That.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, it wasn't me. I didn't move.
What?
Someone typing?
No?
It was there. Someone. It's like someone's pinging the mic.
Not me, don't think. It's not this.
I can't hear it. So, is it me?
A dodonk noise, as Running Dak says. Yes.
Donk.
Okay, it stopped.
Weird. Beautifully described, though, Running Deck. We're going to have to give you a secondary job as audio description manager,
Yes, you can do the subtitles.
as well as head of elections.
Barry's always a bit loud.
See, I got told to turn it up by these two, Jeff. So, you know, it's the staff I'm working with here, frankly.
Just bring your mic down a bit, John. You've gone off. You've moved
1,
off.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Lovely, thank you.
I've lowered my levels.
Oh,
We've got a Mr. G. Gibson.
Michael Deer's going on the list.
Baz is a bit loud now. Oh, no. Would you rather he was muted? Where's the button for
Hey,
that?
Running Deck, I just laid praise on you, my friend. So you come and see me after. Right, are we ready to start this nonsense?
Yeah,
God
come on,
knows.
got things to do.
Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the PC Pro podcast. It is the 13th of August 2026, and I'm Barry Collins, news and features editor of PC Pro. And with me today, I have John Honeyball
Afternoon.
and Lee Grant.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. We start on this boiling hot Heatwave 9 with stories about things that are making the planet worse, namely AI. And there's been quite a big shake-up at Google, it seems. They announced a big reorganisation, I think at the end of last week, which basically sees Demis Hassabis, he's the British and was the CEO of DeepMind, which is Google's AI arm that basically they bought in, must be 5 or more years ago now. But Hassabis has given up his CEO role, and he is going to become chairman and the chief scientist of Alphabet. And they will see a chap called, and I'm never going to get this name right, so apologies, Cory Kavakoglu, who was previously DeepMind's CTO and Alphabet's chief AI architect. He's now going to be taking over the daily operations, apparently, as a senior vice president. But crucially, he's based in the US, not over here in London, where the rest of the DeepMind team, or most of the DeepMind team, are. He's based out of San Francisco, and he won't take the CEO title, but he'll effectively do the CEO role by the sounds of it, and will report directly to Sundar Pichai, not to Demis Hassabis. This follows Google losing, or more accurately, DeepMind losing several of its long-standing senior staff in recent weeks. Jeff Dean, who's left after 27 years apparently, and a series of other senior figures have left DeepMind, and it's all starting to feel like it's gone a bit wrong with Google's AI plans, and it looks like they're trying to shake things up to get it back on track. The sort of context for this really is Gemini 3.5 Pro, which is now running months late. They announced, I think, at their I/O conference back in May, I believe, that it would be ready by June. It hasn't. It missed a July deadline as well. And the feeling is that Google Gemini is falling some way behind certainly the models from OpenAI and Anthropic, and having caught up quite brilliantly in we all remember how Google was caught on the hop by the advent of ChatGPT at the end of 2022, and the disasters that were barred and the several iterations it went through before it seemed to have really caught up with Gemini. In fact, some regarded it as being the leader maybe a year or two ago. Now it seems to be struggling again, but I guess from a British angle, it's a bit sad perhaps to see that a British success story appears to be, how can I put it, not being shuffled sideways as such, but sidelined a bit. What do you make of it all, John?
Well, there's always going to be these movements in these huge corporations. They're global entities, and they have staff everywhere, including the places that they talk about and places they don't talk about. There will be developers all over the place, and this is nothing new. I mean, if you go back to the 1990s, the early days of Microsoft SQL Server, it turns out that most of the developers of that were actually in Dublin, but no one knew about that. This happens all the time. People move around, and so forth. And yeah, you can sort of romanticize it and say it's a loss for the UK and so forth. But I think realistically, you have to sort of take a bigger picture view on this, and also what's happening with. I've got a terrible hum, chaps.
Yeah,
and also an echo.
It sounds like when you're speaking, you're in an airport.
I haven't changed anything here.
I have to say, he sounds fine to me.
How weird.
But isn't that always the way with Riverside? We're all here and we all hear different things. It's the worst reliable witness in the world.
Hummer's gone.
Okay. Shall I carry on?
Sorry, should I start that bit again?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Sorry for editing. Sorry, people's online. Not an earth didn't change any plumbing. It's always the case with these global corporations that people move around, roles change, they redefine things. These large organisations seem to spend their entire lives redefining teams and shuffling things around and lines of responsibilities, and so on and so forth. In fact, you could almost argue it's quite rare, even for something like Apple with Tim Cook, who was in CEO for so long. You would have expected in sort of American corporate terms for him to be moved out sideways, up or down several times. So I'm not surprised if you look back in the history of software development for these global corporations. They have development places all over the place. I remember the earliest days of SQL Server in the early 90s for Microsoft, and they had a big development team in Dublin. And it's not even necessarily the case for the biggest organizations. You take something like Wolfram Research that does the utterly wonderful Mathematica. The boss, Stephen Wolfram, lives near Boston, and the headquarters are in Champaign, Illinois. And he hasn't been on site as a boss for 30 years, but he has developers in almost every country around the world. So yeah, I can see the point. It's a nice kind of headline grab, and I'm not getting at you, Barry, about this at all. It's a nice kind of IT tech headline thing about someone's moved, or the things have shuffled around and so forth. It's going to be really cases of seeing what the outcome is from this. The big unknown on all this is that these big companies, the big 5 foundation AI companies, are spending insane amounts of money here, not just on the hardware but also on the training. I was reading one. A learned commentator yesterday was saying you have to remember you're taking now $500 to $600 million to train a model, and it has a lifespan of about 4.5 months before something else comes along, and you have to have something else to come along. So the whether this model is good or not enough better than the previous one or so forth is kind of slightly moot, because the whole thing is moving so fast. So yeah, there's been shuffling around. Am I particularly bothered? No.
Anything to say, Lee?
It was just that I was trying to sort of make sense of the story, and Cole Trigascus on Discord has just mentioned that there was a rumor that Demi wanted to move, but Google wouldn't let him as it would shock the share price. And I thought that was a bit odd, because I remember talking about him about 4 years ago, I think it was, on the podcast, when Microsoft stole Mustafa Suleyman, basically to hide up Microsoft AI, and we mooted on that day that basically they'd gone for the salesman rather than the tech brains of the operation. Not to be diskind to either party there, but that seemed to be the case at sort of DeepMind. So I was having a dig around this morning and looking at various stories, and the one that sort of made most sort of sense to me was actually an article on Semaphore.com, who had tapped a few insiders up and basically suggested that the move very simply was the fact that Google had been wheeling him around the world as a sort of a tech executive and sort of shoving him out into panels, and and very much a hands-off sort of role that it was becoming, and he wanted to be very simply the hands-on visionary scientist that it always was. It's quite a simple explanation, but it seemed quite believable to me.
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. But meanwhile, Nvidia have been trying to pump even more investment into AI than is already occurring. They've worked with a number of venture capital firms: Apollo, BlackRock, Blackstone, Brookfield, Goldman Sachs, amongst them, all the likely suspects, to create a $500 billion fund of third-party capital to help finance AI infrastructure. And this is basically, I guess, a pitch to turn AI. Well, first it's a pitch for people to buy more GPUs, which obviously benefits NVIDIA. But I guess a way to make the funding a little easier. There's certainly been a lot of rumbling in recent months about how much these big companies are spending on AI infrastructure, and whether we're ever likely to see, or they're ever likely to see, a return on it. I don't think any of us are going to. But the market hasn't reacted particularly well to this initiative from NVIDIA. Apparently, NVIDIA's own share price fell by about 3% on Monday, taking just 130 billion off of the value of the company. So maybe they need to plug some of that 500 billion straight back in. But again, another attempt to try and throw money at AI. John?
Well, there's been these sort of circulating rumours that a great deal of the funding has been sort of swilling around between these sort of big five companies plus Oracle plus Nvidia, and that Nvidia has basically, to use a very sort of arm waving broad brush, has basically been funding an awful lot of this against future sales of their chips and so forth, and the money has sort of been sloshing around on enormously eye-watering IOUs. The fact that they've actually had to go and publicly set up a fund now might suggest, and this is what I've been hearing from people in that space, is that they've kind of running out of the ability to just sort of slosh the money around and wave their arms, and they now actually have to go and get somebody else's money to spend as well, and that setting up this fund is a way to try and keep the whole merry-go-round going, at least for the short-term time being.
Are you chipped in a tenner, Lee?
No. I'm not at all. I'm not going to.
Are you not a believer?
I am not. I'm going to wait for the last part of this story, and I'll come back to this point. I've got nothing exciting to say at this juncture.
Okay. In that case, I'll rattle on through it, which is the news that Amazon have confirmed a new data center in Pico County, West Texas, and nothing really unusual about that, except that they're going to power it with their own on-site gas plant, apparently. This is going to be permitted to emit up to 33 million tons of CO2 a year. It's got reported capacity of around 7.5 gigawatts. Amazon says that this new site will be powered by new on-site generation that won't raise electricity costs for Texas families, because obviously, especially in the US, in fact, there's been a lot of opposition to data center builds because it's having a detrimental effect on local energy and energy prices. So this is Amazon's way of, I guess, trying to get around that issue. The sort of bigger picture issue that it's not getting around is that Amazon in 2019 pledged to be net zero by the year 2040, and building gas plants that are churning out 33 million tons of CO2 a year seem to be directly contradictory to that, although Amazon insists that it's still its goal and it's still on target to hit that 2020-40 goal, whatever that will ever look like. Go on then, Lee, have your moment.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest horror really isn't that this plant will emit this, but that it's really been allowed to emit this because they've had to get a permit to get this thing. This thing's not built yet. I mean, for comparison, this is sort of double the current biggest emitter in the US, which is a coal burning plant in Alabama, which does about 16 million tons. So this is the other sort of smoke and mirror of the AI production. Amazon sort of pledged to eliminate pollution, as you said, Barry, and we know these promises can be sort of massaged. For years I've been sort of reading and writing about carbon credits, and with frankly, we've now admitted that that's all cobblers as well, and this sort of thing is too. But Amazon have chosen to build this thing, a gas-powered plant in an area which is currently riddled by forest fires and therefore air pollution, instead of actually constructing a genuinely green energy-powered data center. They're currently looking at a flat plot of land. They can build anything, and they've gone for this. And once this is operational, there's a strong possibility it alone could become the biggest environmental polluter in the US. And given the state of the climate at the moment, you've got to sort of say this behaviour's a bit reckless now. But on a local level, there's so much research currently about populations that live near high emission output suffering from heightened risk of heart disease, asthma, and other respiratory illnesses. And all Amazon can say is, we promise not to put everyone's up energy bills, which is virtue washing of the greatest sort of type, because Amazon has the cash to pay for everyone's energy bills forever, near enough. The detrimental health of the local populace is this purely just going to fund Bezos having another wang-shaped rocket that you can go to Mars on? And a report that I read this week indicates there's currently about 500 local bans on data centers in the US in operation. We talked about New York, I think, on the podcast a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the reason behind a lot of these bans are what I've just mentioned. It's the effect on the local communities, the infrastructure, and the growing realization that these places don't create many jobs past the initial construction phase. At least Amazon at this point isn't wheeling that lie out. you know, and there was 300 bans in June. So this resistance is growing fast. So given that Jensen Huang has tapped the vulture capitalists for the other 500 billion that you've just been talking about to build more infrastructure, he's going to have to start looking very hard where to put this stuff in America, because increasingly it's going to become difficult to do so.
Anything to say, John, before we move on?
I mean, where do you start with a story like this, to be honest? And it really is quite depressing. Yeah, we can all have a discussion about, you know, my 13-year-old dirty Audi A3 diesel, and I should replace it with a Tesla or an electric something. But the reality is, it's still a workable vehicle. It's still got some life in it. And if I sold it, somebody else would drive it to the end of its days, and I'd just be buying a newer car instead. That's an entirely different. Not obviously not just in terms of scope, but also in terms of mindset. To saying we're going to build a greenfield, brand new site, and we're going to put a gas turbine on it, and we're going to emit the largest amount of pollution in the state of Texas while doing it. That's just unconscionably stupid, and there is no meaningful way around that. I mean, you could argue, well, it would be lovely if we had small thermonuclear plants, or we could take half of Texas and cover it with solar panels. I mean, having been there a few times, I'll be quite happy if you took all of Texas and covered it in solar panels. But that's, you know, just, you know, me versus Texas. And you know, and you could do huge solar panels and battery packs and power this thing. But to go and put a gas turbine in on this place and say, and sort of wheedle your way around it by saying, well, it's not going to put up local electricity bills or whatever, is the scammiest of the scammiest, I have to say. And you also would have to wonder about just how much subsidies are they getting from state level, national level, etc., to build this thing. And do we actually need it? Does the world need this? Does it need it to be there? You know, and I don't want to be all negative about AI. I can do that, you know, plenty well enough in lots of other ways and spaces. But do we actually need this? Do they need to build this? Are they just doing this because they've got the money and they're expected to build this kind of stuff, and they just simply don't give a damn about it? And your point about the greenwashing, Lee, I think is absolutely spot on. These companies have been claiming for years that they're going to become carbon neutral, plastic neutral, raw materials neutral, and a lot of companies are doing really good work in trying to do this. You know, Samsung's working on it, Apple's working on this, on recycling aluminium and titanium and all this sort of really, you know, meaningful stuff, because they're building at vast scale. And then a company comes
Samsung
along
and Apple aren't afraid to put AI into their products that every mention as well, though, so that's not giving them a complete carte blanche there.
No, except and both of them, of course, are doing a lot of work on running the AI models locally on your phone or laptop or whatever, rather than calling out to a damn great big dirty lump in the middle of Texas.
All right, we've got to move on because we're already behind schedule. We're only on the first story, so let's skip through. And this one's with you, Lee, and it's a strange story, this one.
Yeah, it's actually a bit of fun, actually. And credit to Wired.com for sort of launching this one out. Very simply, it's a security researcher who bought two domains. One in 2020, he bought noreply.us, and then in 2024, he bought noreply.net. Basically just to see what happened. He used them as a honeypot, catch-all accounts, which basically means any email sent to whatever email address at that domain were captured. And since December 2024, these domains have received over 400,000 messages, which is almost 700 per day. And so what began as a bit of a personal project has now turned into an effort to warn businesses, because many of the emails he's receiving contain attachments, often with sensitive corporate information. Now, the reason why these emails are being sent to these domains isn't immediately obvious, but part of the belief is that developers testing systems sort of send logs or whatever to addresses at noreply.net, thinking that these emails will vanish into the void. The thinking is possibly that they're using noreply.net or noreply.us, thinking it does the same as when you put .invalid or .test or .localhost, which are sort of reserved or can be reserved for these sorts of purposes. Along the same lines is another theory, is that when an employee leaves a company, their email address, Fred at mycompany.com. That email address may be tied to sort of licenses or internal systems. So instead of sort of deleting the email account for the user that's no longer sort of present in the company, they just sort of tweak the profile to Fred at noreply.net or something like that, as they don't have to sort of delete it and keep other sort of services running. Either way, however it is happening, and he's received over 14,000 addresses connected to over 6,200 root domains. And the researcher, who's, I've just realised I have not mentioned his name, his name is Corey Slolovich, he states that the mails are not being sent by humans, but by automated company systems, which I guess is the worrying bit. Now, he spoke about this at the recent DEF CON, and explained explained that he's building a probe to see if other placeholder domains may be configured to receive, basically emails. And he says he scanned over 7,000 domains and 300 were verified as having a catch-all inbox. So he suggests that what he has accidentally found may only be the tip of an iceberg. And he may be right. As someone else, Mike Sherwood, who's the head of security at the EV charging company Zeal, he bought deleteduser.com for $15, and within the first hour, 3 different companies had emailed it. Now, he's seen thousands of emails from at least 100 different organisations across multiple domains that he now owns. He's bought a few others just to see what happens. He's had emails detailing people's Viagra orders, messages asking him to approve people's work vacations, leaves of absences, hotel bookings, including people's full names, invitations to Zoom meetings from a UK government agency, also Microsoft partner companies, cybersecurity companies, and an invite to a summer barbecue addressed to Dear Deleted User. So, one of the most frequent sources of email, Sherwood says, without sort of naming the firm, is an AI company that uses object recognition to detect workers at industrial sites in the Middle East who may not be following safety protocols. Anyway, so he's getting all that. What I will just say, just to finish it off, like I say, it is a bit of a quirky story. These guys are good folks. They're, they're being quite public about what's going on, but in a responsible way. So they've tried to contact the various firms involved to alert them to what is going on with their own systems. And as you would expect, some companies respond and the majority do not. So the emails keep on coming.
Are you setting up honeypots, John?
Well, no, I don't do that. I have admitted to what I'm about to tell you a while ago, but I will now say I've been a good boy and I haven't done this for a long time, so it wasn't me. Was whenever I was forced with one of those sort of websites where you have to put in an address to get onto a pub's Wi-Fi or that kind of stuff, I always found a very handy email address was billg@microsoft.com. And I'm pretty sure some 20-odd years ago I did actually admit to Bill that I'd done that, and he did actually have the good grace to laugh. But I haven't done it for a long time. I know you really shouldn't do that, boys and girls.
Bob at bob.com gets all of my junk email like that. Poor sod.
Yeah. It's a bit like we have a domain name which actually isn't wide up at the moment, which is RussianBabes.net, which we use as a domain name when we're trying to discuss anything that is, shall we say, slightly less salubrious as content when testing software, and you're looking to test a filter or whatever, and you want to discuss it with the client, but you don't want to talk about real domain names, so you just use RussianBabes.net for the simple reason I own the domain, and it's really quite safe. But there you go.
Good luck explaining that to local constabulary if you ever get investigated. Okay, and talking of in no way dodgy domains, let's move on to Meta, John.
Yes. Now, you'll remember there was Google Glasses, which was a big flop, about 8-10 years ago, something like that. And one of the reasons it was a big flop because people suddenly turned around and said, hold on, you're wearing glasses and it's got a camera in it. I don't like that. Why are you coming into gym changing rooms or other kind of places that you really shouldn't be taking a camera into, and for which the societal norms are quite correctly saying you don't use a camera in those environments. Now, of course, we're now 10, 12, whatever years later. Google Glass was a failure, but of course now Meta has been doing all of its stuff with Ray-Ban, and they're teamed with, is it Luxottica, if I get the name right, the fashion glasses company. So basically what's happening is that people are waking up to the fact that people can be wandering around with glasses and they've got cameras in it. of course, we knew this a decade ago and raised the issues, but now probably others are waking up to it. The latest ones to wake up to this are Her Majesty's, or His Majesty's, I apologise, that's showing my age, His Majesty's Courts and Tribunal Services, which is HMCTS, which has basically pointed out that anyone wearing Meta glasses going into a court environment will have them removed from them, because here in the UK at least you are not allowed to take cameras into a court. It's strictly forbidden. And people, it would appear, probably not in large numbers, but have been doing this. So they have come out and said you can't do that. Even if they've got prescription lenses in them, you will have to hand them over, and it will be given them back to you at the end of the day. Now, these are not just the only environment where this is happening. Weatherspoons, it would appear, according to our good friends over at the Register, have been asked about this kind of camera stuff, and they haven't quite given it an outright ban, but they have said that effectively that Weatherspoons, like all pubs and restaurants and so forth, are private environments. You do not have a right to film in them, unlike being out on the street where you do have a public right to film, and that they are taking a dim view of this. Now this opens up a whole can of worms, which is all about smart glasses and the impending forthcoming ways as smart glasses get better and better. Fortunately, smart glasses up to now have been almost uniformly really terrible, because the display technology for projecting onto the glass is really, really bad. I mean, people like to say, well, isn't it magical and so forth? No, it's really rubbish. The only way to do this properly is with Vision Pro, and that's an entirely different creature, not like smart glasses. And so we're going to see this more and more moving forward. The question is the public ready to accept a smart glass with a camera in it for all the even if you don't have display screens, just a camera to feed into an AI engine, maybe with LiDAR to do 3D depth, and then speech coming back to you telling you, turn left, or go to the green door, or whatever. Now, obviously, there are some exceptionally important uses for body cameras or glasses-mounted cameras. People who have got disabilities with or restrictions with their vision, these can be absolutely life-changing to be able to walk around and have rooms described to you. That the door is on the left, go forward 4 feet, and the knob is on the right-hand side. These kinds of things. It's obvious that these are going to be intensely useful to these people, and we absolutely should be encouraging that. That's not the same thing as firing up some glasses in a restaurant, or even worse, going into what you would hope to be a private space, gym changing rooms, toilets, whatever. There's obvious cases that will come to mind where privacy must be respected. The question is the public ready to embrace this kind of technology, and is the vocabulary and discussion out there ready to enable this technology for the mainstream rather than the specialist use case? I'm not wholly convinced it is.
The difficulty, I think, is knowing that the new Ray-Bans from Meta it's not immediately visible that there's a camera on those devices, and they are meant to have a LED that flashes when they are recording, but as we've seen, I've written in PC Pro about how they're very easy to circumvent and disable that LED. So it's the not knowing that's the issue, isn't it? And I think we may end up in a situation where people going in with an ordinary pair of Ray-Bans are going to start to be accused of furtively filming people. What do you make of it all, Lee?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there used to be a phrase that you wouldn't hit a person with glasses, but the phrase probably might be have to modify you wrestling that person with glasses to the ground to rip their glasses off their head just in case they are recording you. And yeah, I think you're right. The problem is absolutely detecting them. And then, as John said, there are people that these would be a massive aid to their life. In the way that they navigate the world, and we haven't had that discussion. As always, this is just a massively commoditized device which a company has spent a fortune on, and we're going to buy it whether we like it or not, whether anyone's actually think about the implications of what that will do to the society around them. Yeah, and people do have a distrust of cameras, and I say that as someone that sees a lot of other people's laptops, which still have plasters and stickers wedged firmly over the webcam lens because they just don't want to be filmed. They just have this absolute distrust. I get asked for laptops with no cameras in them because people don't want it. Sounds strange to say, but it is a genuine concern for people. And also a little rule I learned in my TV days, which I think is still pertinent, is that if you know you're near a microphone, then you always have to assume that it's turned on. So watch what you say. And I imagine sort of many people, especially in a pub environment, and that's the most casual of these things, trying to relax, knowing there was a possibility that the person they're speaking to could be recording the entire conversation.
Yeah.
It really does sort of shift some social dynamics, these things.
Exactly.
So it's, I guess with these sorts of problems, the law enforcement threat isn't quite as effective as the social stigma of being caught with, as my children told me they were called last night, pervert glasses. Apparently that is how they're referred to by the youth. But I was pleased to see in some stories that they've resurrected the old Google glass holes as a phrase for people that wear these. But I can understand why people are borrowing these.
I have actually got a thought on this because I've been thinking about this since yesterday, and I have a potential solution, but you're going to have to wait for that because I've promised dear editor Danton that it will be the next back page column. What I have to write by middle of tomorrow, because hits the shelves in a week and a half's time, something like that. So my current
You've not got your column in yet.
Don't be silly. It's the last
Pushing this
thing.
deadline, aren't you?
No. Well, he says the deadline is tomorrow, but you could go with Monday. So how about that? But I think it actually goes to final press on Tuesday. So we don't want to rush these things.
I'm sure the
Harry,
subs would agree with Tim. I mean,
Not my problem.
Steve must be losing what little hair he has left.
Well, anyway, so we'll come back to this as a topic because, of course, the big elephant yet to be in the room will be Apple probably in the next year or so and what they're going to do in this space because they're not going to be unaware of this privacy issue. I can't believe that they would be so socially inept. I have no problem with Zuckerberg being socially inept on this, but we'll just really have to wait and see.
Paul C asks on Discord, and you can join us live every Thursday at 1 p.m. at pcpro.link/Discord. He says, question, when these glasses inevitably get banned, will they give out refunds for the purchase price? Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's definitely a groundswell of opinion, it feels like, forming about these glasses. Whether they actually go as far as banning them outright, I'm sceptical, but... I'm even more sceptical Facebook are about to give you your money back if they do get banned. But anyway, let's shuffle along, and it's Right to Repair League with you.
Yeah, at the end of July, the European Union's Right to Repair Act came into effect. Now, you probably haven't heard a lot about it because it's a bit of a slow burner, this one. So basically, this is great on the one hand, but there's a few problems. So I'm going to whistle down the list of runners and riders because it is an important thing that's happened. So basically, from the 31st of July, all EU member states were required to have transposed their this right to report directive into their national law, which sounds great. Now, the sad thing is only 4 have done it so far, which is Croatia, Lithuania, Slovakia, and my favourite place for pony trekking and camping, Finland. It's one for the Monty Python fan. Basically, so there's to say that sort of a lot of the countries haven't yet embraced this. It is, I guess, a bit of an understatement. However, many countries are publishing draft legislations or are quite advanced at the process. But the fact remains, as I said, there's a few that haven't crossed the lines. But people across Europe have currently got this sort of strange situation where they're experiencing different levels of what this directive now means in different countries depending on where they live. So it is all a bit of a mess at the moment. There's also lots of localized arguments about terms such as affordable or professional repairer, which frankly we have not got time to get into at the moment because they are incredibly dull. However, the interesting part of this directive is the introduction of something called the European Repair Platform, which is a pan-EU system, so an online system to help users find repairers or refurbished goods sellers or community repair initiatives and other sort of repair things like that. Now, this isn't up and running yet. the European Commission must establish this platform by the 31st of July 2027. And given the laughable success rate of many of the UK government's digital schemes, building this in a year for all of Europe is going to be somewhat of a challenge. The plan is that this will go live on the 1st of January, always a good day to launch something, on 2028. Member states by the 31st of July 2029 must also introduce one measure which promotes repair, which is something like repair vouchers, where you get a discount voucher to have your device repair much cheaper, or maybe even tax reductions. Again, just initiatives to make people think actually it's cheap enough to get this repaired, which is, I guess, sort of the bigger picture for all of this. It's sort of trying to turn people's sort of mindsets. The other sort of gotcha for this one is the list of products which are covered by the obligation to repair. It's a bit of a strange list. So we've got washing machines and washer dryers, dishwashers, refrigerators, electronic displays, welding equipment, servers and data storage products, phones, cordless phones and tablets, tumble dryers, e-bikes and scooters, and local space heaters, because we're desperate for those at the moment. And from the PC Pro perspective, we're missing laptops, PCs, printers, scanners, all that sort of stuff.
When you say electric displays, though, what does that cover?
Apparently, it's like your like POS screens and things like that.
Right, so not the display on your laptop or your phone or whatever.
It might even include some televisions, but right. I believe there's been a bit of wheedling on that. There is a lot of... If I was to be unkind, I would say there's a whiff of anti-repair lobbyists about some of this list. For example, the glaring omission is vacuum cleaners, which is one of the most disposed of items, whilst also being one of the easiest to repair. You go to any recycling centre in the UK, and you'll see a lot of vacs in the electronics thing.
Henry's staring back at you.
Yeah, absolutely, and they are.
A lot of vaxers or vacuum cleaners?
Vacuum cleaner, my apologies.
Okay.
I didn't want to get us in trouble with Vax there. Thank you, John, for hauling us out. They are easy, but for example, vacuum. The reason I mentioned vacuum cleaners, it's tied up with another piece of EU legislation, which is called the Eco Design, and so it can't be in both, and one's not fixed yet. So blah, blah. It's just, again, a bit noisy. But that said, it's an important milestone, and this is arguably, despite its flaws, the biggest advance for repair to date in the EU. And it should shortly increase people's options to choose repair over replace, because it will be cheaper and easier to do so. So this is basically a mark in the sand, a flag in the ground, call it what you want. So good things will come from here, hopefully.
But not over here. No,
but we don't really do a lot over here apart from follow what Europe does. And though we're not part of that, mind you, political changes, who knows what will happen. It won't surprise me at all if we get tagged into this sort of thing, or basically photocopy our own version, because it is eminently a sensible thing. And the voucher scheme that I mentioned, sort of giving people vouchers, that's currently being trialled in London by the Restart Project, and that's been really quite successful in getting more people into repair shops. So a lot of the initiatives that are going through the EU are being sort of done in the UK as well, but not at an official level, so to speak.
Well, the other thing as well, if they're making this stuff repairable for Europe, they're not going to make unrepairable versions just for the UK, are they? So we're going to get the trickle down whether we're part of the union or not. John, any thoughts on this?
Well, I certainly take my lead from the Honourable Mr. Lee on this matter. I think. As I get older, I just get more and more depressed as to how staggeringly incompetent politicians and political bodies are, and governmental bodies are at trying to implement anything. And it seems that it really is a case of sort of one step forward, two sideways, and half up its own fundament most of the time. And they all sort of like to sit around and take large amounts of time and an awful lot of expensive lunches to come up with something which makes you want to slap your forehead. Last week I spent the day in Brussels, and the whole kind of thing is sort of massively frustrating, and I try and stay away from it as much as possible, simply because it's just so damn annoying. Despite the good intentions of a lot of the people involved, underneath it who are maybe thwarted by the lobbying and the lack of understanding and compromise and let's all try and make a camel that seems to happen most of the time. So, am I allowed a bar humbug?
Granted. I think also we should introduce a new feature on our PC Pro podcast, which is the Ninja Nurse Lottery, because every week our dear friend Ninja Nurse, who's one of our regular Discorders, has to leave early for his first patient arriving, and today's time is 1:38. So whoever's presenting next week, at the start of the show, we should start the Ninja Nurse Lottery, where everybody has to guess which time Ninja Nurse leaves the show, and the prize is a week in John Hannibal's house.
And I would point out, Ninja Nurse, having met him in person, is top chap.
Yeah, there you go. Personally validated.
He came along to the pub meet, which we probably ought to do another one of at some point.
Was he there? Was he?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. Must have been too drunk. Right. Well, where are we? It's Nibs time. John, we're with you. There's been some shenanigans on Delta this week.
Well, I mean, if you want fun from a security perspective, what are you going to do? The answer is you're going to go to Las Vegas, you're going to go to DEF CON. DEF CON is the big sort of, dare I use the term, hacker conference. You know what I mean? Security vulnerabilities, all of this stuff happens at DEF CON. And, you know, I have friends who go to it every year. I must confess I've never managed to to go to one in the States, and I really ought to at some point. But my friends all say, don't take your standard laptop with you, don't take your phone, because it's way, way more dangerous than even trying to go into China or whatever, because you go there and you will get hacked. Actually, DEF CON is another place where they've banned smart glasses, which I thought was interesting. So anyway, coming out of DEF CON, a chap was on a flight on Delta Airlines from Las Vegas to Atlanta, and it would appear from reading between the lines, it would appear that he set up a Wi-Fi pineapple, and then tried to ban in the middle the in-flight Wi-Fi. And of course, people got really, really upset because not only had he done this and was transmitting an SSID that was something like a Delta in-flight,
Delta Wi-Fi fast it was called.
And trying to get people onto it, and everyone got really, really upset. But of course, the flight was of course full of other people who had been at DEF CON and who had spotted what had happened. I mean, it does take me back a few months when I was flying to Vegas, and I did try out the Unify travel router so that I could log in on one thing and then share it to all of my devices. But I was actually transmitting an SSID that was mine rather than trying to pretend to be the in-flight system of Delta. So he got quite a spanking, and then Delta were all quite upset and embarrassed about it. And my response is, well, you know, twofold, one of which is, what did you expect on flights coming out of Vegas from DEF CON? The other one was recently me and Tim, we were on different flights, but I flew British Airways to Shanghai and then came back from Hong Kong. And in both flights, the in-flight Wi-Fi simply didn't work for the entire flight. So there was no point trying to set up a pineapple and grabbing anything anyway.
Pineapple? I've never heard this phrase.
It's pineapple. It's a standard piece of kit for doing man-in-the-middle Wi-Fi. It'll impersonate an existing Wi-Fi and then capture the traffic going through it.
Oh, there you go.
There's a whole range of different sizes and capabilities. Top pieces of fun.
I'll be straight on Amazon ordering a pineapple after this show, John. But in the meantime, Blue Sky have taken a bit of a tumble, according to a report on TechCrunch. They reported, or it's been reported, I'm not sure they did, 10.4 million monthly active users on the app in June 2026. That's down 27% year on year, which isn't great for a relatively new social network. Blue Sky really came into prominence when Elon Musk strode into X and set it on fire, and it was one of the sort of lifeboats that many people went to. I guess many people on the left of politics, it's often characterised as. So it looks like it's having a bit of a downturn, although Threads appears to be the place where most people are going, not Twitter. Threads is growing up 21% over that same time period, apparently. John, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm on Blue Sky. And I only ever post there when I go to the pub and they have a new real ale on it, and I take a photo of the ale and the photo of the pump, and I send the picture to my very good friend and friend of PC Pro, Mary Jo Foley in New York, because she loves real ales, and that's my entire use case for Blue Sky.
Well, thank you for that.
Now you know.
And that's going to bring in the visitors. No wonder it's collapsing, John. Zoombug, with you.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I was slightly nonplussed by your cynicism there, Barry. Zoom has had a bug which they have fixed. It was a vulnerability in the Zoom Workplace app on basically everything: Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, and Linux. Now, to get one of those wrong is bad enough. To get the whole suite of platforms to have a bug like this really is verging on careless, I think. Basically allows somebody to take control of somebody else's device through the Zoom Workspace app. The victim doesn't have to do anything, and there's no warning to the victim that something happening. But what there is basically, if you use the annotation tool, the vulnerability let bad actors on the call remotely execute malicious code on your device, which seems really, really rather careless. They do say that they have fixed it, and as far as they are aware, no one has used this for real in the wild. But then, as we used to say about the infamous Mandy Rice Davis case, well, they would say that, wouldn't they?
Indeed. Okay, thank you, John. It is hot hardware time. It's not a pineapple running duck. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Maybe that'll be next week. But it is a device I've been testing for the past couple of weeks, which is Valve's Steam Machine. Let me just go and grab it off of the floor. So the Steam Machine, if you're not aware of it, is a tiny little gaming PC. It's for those of you live on YouTube, I'm holding it up on screen now. It's a little cuboid device. I'm trying to compare it in size to something. It's not very. It's like a sort of massive Mac Mini, I guess, in footprint terms. It's sort of
I was going
upwards.
Nintendo GameCube.
Yes, very good, Lee. I think it's a little bit smaller than a GameCube, but it's certainly in the ballpark. This has had something of a disrupted launch because Valve was planning to launch this much earlier this year. And then the whole RAM crisis came along and not only disrupted supplies, but has forced Valve to put up prices. Let's get with the price straight away before we go any further. The price for the base version is $879, which is the 512 gigabyte version. I think that includes the controller, but actually it's not. It's $938 with the controller. And the version that I've been testing, which isn't this one, this is actually mine. This is the 512, but the review unit we had with 2 terabytes of storage is $1208 with the controller. So a little bit over $1,000, and that obviously is not what Valve wanted. Most of the rumors were that the base unit was going to come in at around about $500, $600, and the bigger one a couple of $100 more expensive than that. And obviously the whole RAM crisis has seen prices shoot up for everybody, and Valve's not immune from that either, unfortunately. So it's coming a lot punchier than they may have hoped and expected a year ago. So what is this device, and why have it instead of any other gaming PC? So the biggest factor of it, of course, is convenience. That Valve insists this isn't a console. They say they prefer to think of it as an extension of PC gaming, but it very much fits the console mold in terms of being able to plonk this under your television. It's a fraction of the size of the Xbox Series X that's under my television, for example, or PlayStation. But equally, this can it's been sat here on my desk for the past few weeks. It doesn't really get in the way, fairly small footprint, so it's very convenient. It comes with, well, it doesn't come, but you can buy it with its own controller, which I will now manhandle from behind me, which is very much like a console controller, but you may be able to see if I hold this closer to the camera. It has 2 touchpads on it, and this makes it easier. Obviously, the Steam library of games has been very PC oriented for a number of years, and a lot of those games are designed with mouse and keyboard input in mind. The 2 touchpads actually make it easier to control certain games that might require a mouse input, for example. But there's nothing to stop you plugging in a mouse, either wired or wireless, or keyboard. It takes any kind of PC peripherals. Certainly any mouse and keyboards that I've thrown at it over the past couple of weeks have just worked fine. The other big advantage of the Steam machine is it runs Steam OS, which has much lower overheads in terms of the operating system than Windows especially. But B, you just get on and into the gaming. There's no, in fact, I'm writing a feature at the moment about creating your own Steam machines, which you'll get not next month, but the month after. And that is... installing SteamOS is a dream, and then the whole setup procedure is basically insert a keyboard, give us your Valve Steam credentials, away you go. There's no, can we track you across 9 different networks? Have we shown you our AI? Can we use our browser? None of that nonsense that you get with Windows. You're just straight into the gaming interface and playing straight away. It resumes from standby in 2 or 3 seconds. You can just press the power button whilst you're sort of playing a game, go and make yourself a cup of tea, press power again, and you're starting to get in 2 or 3 seconds time. From a cold boot, it boots in less than 30 seconds. So it's very much focused on gaming, but there is a desktop mode, so you can use it as a regular desktop PC. It's based on Arch Linux, and it has its own app stores, so you'll find, your LibreOffices, Spotify, all those other apps in the App Store, and you can obviously download any compatible Linux app to it as well. Gaming performance wise, it's not at the top of the tree, but it's not perhaps as bad as been made out as well. I've seen a lot of reviews basically comparing it to sort of £2,000 PCs, and that is obviously a little bit misleading. This is, I guess you could say, performance is comparable to the current generation of consoles, and that does sound quite damning in some ways, because those current generation of consoles are now getting on for 5-6 years old, but this wasn't intended to be a top tier piece of hardware. So I've been running benchmarks in various games on it over the past couple of weeks. In Cyberpunk 2077, on the high graphics settings with no frame generation, on my monitor, which is 3440 by 1440, which is a widescreen monitor, that hit 54 frames per second with no AI magic going on, which is playable. It's, maybe a few frames less than ideal, but it's certainly playable. If you turn on the frame generation, AMD frame generation, you're pushing up to sort of 60, 70, and it's fine. It plays fine on my 4K television as well, again, with the frame generation turned on. Valve recommends that its recommended resolution is full HD. So given I'm pushing that on my widescreen monitor and indeed a 4K telly, that's not too bad. At medium settings, you're looking at 69 frames per second. Civilization 7 benchmarks, 54 frames per second on the higher settings, 76 frames per second on the medium. The really quite recent Corsair Cove, which is a sort of pirate strategy game with really intricate graphics, that does struggle a little bit. Once you go, even on the medium settings, that was 28 frames per second without any AI magic going on. But again, once you turn on the AI frame generation, you can get yourself up to 40 odd, and it's not... it's, visibly it looks fine. It's not too bad at all. So there's not many games, certainly any game in my Steam library I've tried to play at it, it's played fine. Sometimes you may have to drop the graphic quality a touch, but by and large it's fine. Certainly if you're playing at TV distance, you're not going to really notice the difference much between medium and high quality graphics anyway. Running Dak asks what's model is being nominated for hot hardware. There's no real difference in terms of performance. Running Dak, there's just a level of storage, so they're both the same internals. It's just one has 2 terabytes of storage, one has 512. So you can just pick the model that depends how much storage you need. Can it play Crysis? Says Paul C. And now this is one of the issues with these games. So it will play, thanks to the Proton translation layer, pretty much any of the games in the Steam library, but there are some that don't play. The most obvious ones are Europa Universalis 4. City Skyline 2 doesn't play in it yet. There's a few others. You can do some bends and tweaks to get other game stores games in it, so you can get the Epic Game Store if you hack around enough on your Steam Deck. But that means, again, games like Fortnite and Rocket League rely on anti-cheat systems that are designed for Windows, so you basically can't use the online modes in those games, and those games are all online pretty much, so it sort of kills those games. But like I say, the vast majority of my games in my Steam library have worked very nicely. Yes, you can plug in storage. No, it doesn't come in any other colours as such. I'm just answering questions that appeared on Discord, by the way, but this front plate here, oh my god, is that the front plate? Yes, comes off, and you can put on different front plates. They also sell a full body surround. Let me just put this down a second. So excuse me. This is good radio. The view unit they sent in is clad in this. Ooh, I don't know quite how to describe it. Sort of cyberpunky, heart-shaped unit, which makes the whole unit much bigger. I don't really understand why they did that for review units, but there's all kinds of third-party customizations going on if you want to change the design of it. Portal, of course, Culture Gasker, so why didn't I... Yes, it's a Portal-inspired box. So there we go. Any questions on the floor before I open up the voting?
Yes.
Go on, John.
This starts at quite a lot and then goes up to really quite a lot more, doesn't it, in terms of pricing?
Well, tops out 1,200, yeah.
Well, I'm just looking here, and, you know, I say this as an ignorant person who doesn't play games, but we have got a full big PC gaming rig thing in the lab. You know, a PlayStation PS5 digital edition console, $519.99.
That was the old price. I think it's gone
No,
up.
it's on their website now. Just
Okay.
looking right now. And Xbox. Oh, did I have? Sorry, that was Xbox. Here we go. 1 terabyte. 669. Oh, Series S 1 terabyte 519. So this is quite a lot more expensive. Now, obviously, Steam has a huge library of games and all of that stuff. But then so does Xbox. So does PlayStation. So I'm trying to find reasons in my head as to why this is a better all-round deal than a PlayStation or an Xbox. So my next question, I guess, is how useful and so forth is the sort of desktop-y mode, and would I rather just have a Raspberry Pi for doing that at 150 notes?
So I'd say the Steam market is very different to the console market in that you get a lot more indie games at a lot cheaper prices. I think the back catalogue of Steam games is, you know, it goes back now 15, 20 years, and obviously there's going to be compatibility issues the further you go back. But I would say as a library, I think Steam's far superior to either what PlayStation or Xbox offers, and you can get many far cheaper games for both.
Okay. So as a total package with 10, 15 games, you're making the case that the hardware cost, which is higher, is offset by games cost or monthly subscription costs or whatever.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, you know, I
Okay.
wouldn't focus too much on that, but it's also, you know, you're talking. I think this is more more comparable to games PCs, and you know, in fact, I've got in a couple of games PC. We you know, I don't want to spoil this feature, but we asked the PC manufacturers to effectively create their own Steam machines that we could test against it, and they both come in at roughly £1,200. So if you're looking to anything with basically discrete graphics and a decent amount of storage these days, you're probably looking at 4 figures. So I don't think it's outrageously priced in terms of PC specs. Obviously those consoles are subsidized. Even now the cost of those is subsidized because they make the money back on the games. Valve obviously do take a cut in the games as well, but I think it's less subsidized than perhaps Microsoft's and Sony's are. Anything else before we go?
If I just might drop in, I just think Steam's just been incredibly unlucky with its timing.
Yeah, quite so.
With this, I think its saving grace seems to be that because it has got this custom Zen chip in it, which is hard for others to replicate, and you know, if they're happy that will do the job, and that provides a benchmark for what they're sort of putting out as far as software support for the games and things like that. That I guess gives them a bit of an advantage over your Intel and Nvidia sort of combos that are out there, because you would hope that Steam would go, yeah, this will definitely work on a Steam machine. The other thing, of course, just to mention is because I've been looking at this for a few reasons, is you can upgrade it. You can upgrade the RAM to 32 gig, and you can upgrade the SSD. So you can buy the cheap one and turbo it. It's not the easiest teardown in the world. It's certainly not as thought out as the Steam Deck console. But which brings me very, very slowly onto my question, Barry. Would you... A customer asked me about one of these, and they couldn't decide whether just to basically hook their Steam Deck up to a HDMI monitor or sync for one of these. They couldn't quite work out how much benefit they would get. What would you say?
Yeah, so I've got a Steam Deck here as well, and the performance of using that with a docking station hooked up to your monitor, it's much poorer. I mean, obviously that hardware is now 2 or 3 generations old, plus its design for the smaller screen wasn't ever really designed, certainly for 4K monitors or the like. So the performance, you're probably looking at a drop in frame rates of something like 10 to 15 frames in those games I just mentioned, if you try and do that with a Steam Deck. So it works, but it's sort of an awkward kludge. I think the Steam machine is a lot cleaner way to do it, but obviously, if you've already got a Steam Deck, it's a very cheaper way. The docks are 50 quid, or you don't even really need a dock. You can just wire it up yourself. But it's certainly the cheaper option. Right, we better go on with it because it's 2:00. Okay. Running Duck has kindly put the vote live, so if you are joining us live on Discord, press the votes buttons now. I see a number of you have already. Let's start with you, John.
Well, it's not my cup of tea is the problem, so it's difficult to get excited about it. But I have to applaud anybody who actually puts their, puts hardware out there and a platform and actually builds something. It's very easy to sit on the sidelines and whine about their support on Xbox or PlayStation or PCs or whatever. They've actually gone and done this. So for that point of view, I have to applaud them. Yes, I think, Lee, you're absolutely right about timing and the RAM apocalypse and disk apocalypse that we're having at the moment. I just bought a 12 terabyte Iron Wolf hard disk and it was like 360 quid. How the hell did that happen? So I'm going to say hot, because I have to applaud them for doing what they're doing, even though it's not really my cup of tea.
Lee.
Yeah, I think I'm very similar. Like I say, I think they're unfortunate, but I've admired their honesty. The fact that they've said, all right, there's going to be delays and it's going to be more expensive. Very much the same tack as Framework has done. They are a much smaller distributor, manufacturer of someone like HP and Dell, obviously like that. So they're not going to be able to sort of get the discounts on the hardware, and they're going to be way down the pecking list for the Ramageddon crisis and stuff like that. So I think the fact that they've managed to get something out the door is testament to their ingenuity. The only possible question I have, whether they would have been better doing a Steam Deck 2 console rather than this, but I'm guessing they have their reasons. But the fact that it's upgradable, the fact that it's repairable, the fact that I'm sure inevitably they will extend their relationship with people like iFixit, so you'll be able to sort of get this thing fixed. And I like the way that you can customize that front panel. There's I've seen a couple of e-ink versions of those, which are just nice little things, just because obviously gamers really love to personalize their stuff, and it's a lot more than just stucking stickers. I like to stuck stickers on the front of their machines these days. So the fact that they can do all that, I think there's a lot of potential there. So just about hot.
Smashing. Yep, I think it's hot too. Bought on my own money, so greater validation than that at Shay Collins. But it's the narrowest of victories on the Discord. 52%, 48%. It's a Brexit vote in favour of the Steam machine. So thank you very much to everybody who has joined us live online. Thank you to John and Lee. Not a particularly convincing win this, Barry, says Paul C. Well, I'll take them where I can get them, Paul C. But someone will be back next week, not me, but I hope some of these fine gentlemen will be around and will join you next Thursday. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'm off to jump into an ice bath. It's absolutely sweating in there.
Yes, absolutely.
Turn my fan back on now. That'll blast you all out. Yes.
Yes.
We know you've got bloody air conditioning. Sod off.
I'm going to try and find this mains hum, which has been annoying me. I've realised it's me, but I can't turn anything. I've turned everything I can turn off without going offline. So
Did you borrow Darian's laptop to do the editing?
it's not quite that bad. But there you go. Right.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Au revoir, folks.
How much?
Bye bye.